What's up, guys? It is Sam here, and today, well, actually, last night I found out that I got a property under contract to purchase, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So, what exactly I do for my analysis, and like I'll show you the spreadsheet that I build to analyze properties, and it doesn't necessarily make sense to analyze the property before it's under contract if you're time constrained. If you've never analyzed a property, then it makes 100% sense to analyze a property. Just analyze one every fucking day for a while. It will change the way you are able to see opportunity in the market. Anyways, this is the property that we are going to be analyzing. So if you want to see the full analysis and my return, stay tuned. If this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam. And for those of you who are returning viewers, first of all, thank you so much. Second of all, you had better be pressing that thumbs up button. This is your second time here, bro. Do it. Okay, now with that being said, let's get into the analysis. So these are just some of the pictures of the property here. Super interesting, right? You can see it's a little outdated with stuff. So let's get into the analysis. So this is the fun stuff, right? If you're watching my channel for some of the political stuff, I think you may enjoy the level of detail on some of this. Okay, so what do we have over here? We have the property. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger without blocking anything. Let's change this up. I'm gonna make the head a little bit smaller, so you guys can see this a little bit better, hopefully. Okay, so we've got I'm gonna just walk through this entire spreadsheet with you, okay? And what I've got highlighted here are some of the costs. So we're just gonna go through this quick. We've got the purchase price. So I locked it up for $157,500. It is a 2-unit place that has some zoning issues that I was able to get a substantial discount on because of the zoning stuff. So they listed it had been listed for $179,500, and I was able to get it for $157,500. There was some zoning stuff that needed to be taken care of, and I know exactly how to do it. So I had that information going into it, and I was able to facilitate a much better offer because I knew what the issues were with zoning, and then also how to correct them. I just didn't tell them that to correct them is only going to cost like $300 or $400. So got a giant discount on this one. Now the renovations, that's $20,000. And when I go through just a fundamental thing for doing property analysis or business analysis, in my opinion, is any type of potential gains that may be had to be as conservative as possible, and any potential type of costs be as liberal as possible. Because if you can make it work where you make it a shitty scenario, right? Benefits are down, expenses or costs are up, right? And if it makes sense at this level, then it definitely makes sense. So that's how I do mine. So the renovations budget, I've actually priced it at around $13,000. So I'm adding $7,000 in there to be conservative, right? This is what I'm talking about in motion, like as I do this analysis, and I'll try to point these things out. Okay, so the total into the property, right, is going to be the $20,000 plus the purchase price, and we're going to get into some of the details of the purchase price and all that fun stuff in a few minutes. But the total is about $180,000. Now let's look at the monthly costs here. So this is just a breakdown. So the monthly cost is about $1,700. So that's going to be the holding cost, because if you're purchasing something, there's a cost to hold it, right? So you can't just ignore that and say that your cost is going to be, the down payment and closing costs and the renovations, because if it takes 3 months and your costs are $1,700 a month, and then that's almost another $6,000 that you didn't factor into your analysis to know if it makes sense. So that's why we have these here, because this is going to be the holding cost essentially. Within that, the mortgage, I rounded up just a little bit. The maintenance cost is factoring in $75 per unit, right, per month. Property manager, $100 per month. Taxes, and I got 2018 taxes that I'm using. PMI, I rounded that up. landscaping, snow removal, $50 per month, utilities, $200 per month, and insurance I also rounded up. So all the expenses here I've gone up with it. And just on a side note, this is the costs during the reno. But if you think about it, during the reno, I don't need to include any of these expenses. So $200 a month, I'm factoring in as an expense that's not actually going to be there, right? Because there's probably not going to be $150 worth of maintenance on the property while I'm doing renovations on the property, right? I factored that in already with my renovation budget. Okay? The same thing with the property manager. If I'm renovating the property and there's nobody fucking living there, I don't need to pay a property manager. And lastly, I'm not going to be paying for the snow removal at this moment in time. Like, it's not something that I need to do if there's nobody living there. So why would you incur that expense? Okay. So now we can see that this is a very, very, very conservative number, right? And by the way, the P&I, that's principal and interest, is based off of this number, not this number, because this is not financed. The $20,000 renovation is funded in cash until I can borrow it from somebody else and fund it that way. I will be funding it in cash. Okay, so what is the ARVE, small e? Well, that's the after repair value estimate. So the range for comps, when I say comps, that is comparable properties in the area. So like square footage, how recently they sold and whatnot, and other amenities and features of the property. So the comps swung, say, between like 230 and 280. So again, on my estimate of comparable properties, I'm still going with the more conservative one. I'm not using the 280 number, right? Because we want to be as conservative as possible to see if this makes sense. Okay. So I'm using the bottom threshold of 230. Now, and if your shit doesn't work like this and you've been doing this 100 times, then do it that way. But if you're watching this video, you probably haven't done this before, so be conservative on these numbers. And it's out there. Like, I found this deal on the MLS. Okay, so now let's come over here to the cash paid in area. So this is, okay, you can see that. Okay, the total paid cash in. Okay, so we have the down payment, right? This is where we're going to start breaking down some more of the details. We have the down payment of just under $8,000, right? And this is just 5% of the purchase price over here. So we took purchase price times 5%, that's how much I'm going to pay down. And you may notice if you purchased property before, well, I'm missing closing costs. Yes. So there's loans available that allow you to take a higher interest rate loan and not pay for closing costs. So that is what I'm doing. So I'm going to pay a higher interest rate and I'm not going to pay for closing costs. And if you have a long-term time horizon that you're dealing with, and you want to reduce the monthly cost, I would not do that. I mean, there's always circumstances where it might make sense, but I probably wouldn't do that. But what's my specific thing is that we're going to get into the reasoning behind picking a specific mortgage, because you've got to think about this in a very holistic way of how you can possibly create value in every little avenue, right? So that's the type of loan I'm going to be getting because I'm going to refinance the property in 6 months. So this is what we're going to get to in a few moments. The renovation budget obviously is just $20,000. Holding costs, like look at this. Holding costs is actually half as much as the renovation budget. So if you hadn't factored that in, that's gonna fuck up your return, brah. This assumes that it takes 6 months. The time horizon I'm looking at is substantially less than that, but just to be super conservative, again, right? I rounded that up to 6 months. I think it's gonna take less than 90 days, honestly. It's not that bad. Okay, but I've never done it before, and I've never done a ton of work with contractors, so I have no idea. That's why I'm factoring in 6 months. Okay, I'm going to do some of the work myself, but also hire contractors because I want it to be done faster, and I want to be able to elevate myself in terms of the way that I see or think about problems. So even if it costs me more money, I'm thinking about it as an investment in myself to think bigger about my problems. So anyways, a little side note about how I fucking think. Okay, so the total cash paid in over this time period, right, for 6 months, is almost 40 grand. Okay. It's a lot of money. So you gotta like have some money, but you also don't really have to have any money. Now, the loan that's left over is because I'm factoring closing in November of 2019. So this is from December 1st up until the end of May in 2020. That's why I have the date there. And the loan value at that time, because every month you're going to be paying principal and interest on your loan, the remaining loan balance is going to be $156,037 bucks. So the all-in cost is going to be the combination. Let's see here. It's going to be the combination of those two, right? The loan plus the all-in cost is going to be, $194,000, right? I'm going to refinance. And what is a refinance going to be based on? Well, the refinance is going to be based on 80% of the ARV. Why 80%? Well, when you do a refinance on a property, the industry standard is to do 80% of the ARV of the after repair value. So if in 6 months, right, I do an appraisal on the property, the appraisal comes back at $230,000. The bank's like, okay, your property's worth $230,000. We'll give you 80% of that value because they got to hedge their risk, right? So they'll give me 80% of that value. Now, what that comes out to be is $184,000, right? And that's why I put 80% of ARV. Now, if you take the all-in cost, right, which is how much I paid in total, plus the loan, then what is left over is $9,936. So that's going to be my total amount in the deal in 6 months. And the interesting thing about this is I get a check for 28 grand. Tax-free, legally. So the semantics of how that works is that the IRS only taxes when ownership changes hands. So if you're refinancing a property, ownership is not changing hands. So you're basically just pulling more money out of the property. So what this effectively does is it gives me all of my down payment back and my entire renovation budget, right? Now, what if I could do this instead of, say, 6 months? What if I did it in 3 months, right? Let's see how that would change it. So if I did it in 3 months, obviously the numbers are going to half, and I'm going to have $5,000 in there. So this might be like how I would look at it, right? And we'll just leave this at 6. That's how I see things, right? Because now I have my $28,000 back that I put into the deal, and that $28,000 goes into another deal, right? Because I still own this property, right? Well, but you're like, well, Sam, you got to make sure it makes sense when you have your payment for the rent after you have a higher mortgage. Yes. Great point. And if you thought that, then give yourself a thumbs up and the video, because that's a good point. So let's get into the average rents. So there's different sites you can find, like Rentometer or apartment.com. I think both have things around average rents in the area. So the average within 1 mile, and then you can also look on Zillow and you can look on Craigslist to see that area, how much are people listing their apartments for, so you know what the market is for rents in that area. You should, if you don't know what the rent market is, then you should probably do some more research, or maybe understand that real estate is not your thing. Like, you got to think about some of these things. Okay, so average rents within a mile of this apartment in the area are about $1,200. So what I like to do, again, to be conservative, we went over the expenses, right? We made all those higher. Now we're going to reduce the top line. So instead of renting it out for the average, I say that we're only going to get 80%. So I'm taking 80% of the average rents. So that way to be conservative. Like, what if I can only rent it for $970 and I can't rent it for $1,213? Does it make sense then too? So that's what we're doing. So the total right here per month is going to be about $1,950 that I will receive. And the total costs, right, at this time period, let's jump over there. The total cost we're just going to go over here and take a look at. Okay, so what do we have here? We have the total costs. Well, what's the only thing that's really changed? Well, the mortgage has changed, right, because it's more costly by, again, here I actually rounded up to $950 by about like $18. So the mortgage payment's a little bit higher than it needs to be. I left pretty much everything else the same. The tax portion will probably increase at the next assessment from the state, but I left that where it was. And I took out utilities because I'm not going to be there anymore, so I don't have to factor the utilities into my holding costs. So we have an increase in the loan amount, but we have a decrease in utilities. So the net effect of that is that the payment on a monthly basis, like the total cost of the property, actually went down, right? And that's what makes up this number here. So the total cash flow is $300 a month, so $3,600 a year roughly. Does it make sense for me to do this deal and make $300 a month? Well, let's take a little bit of a deeper dive and just a different look at it here. This is actually not supposed to be here, but if you take a look here, I just highlighted this in here to make it a little bit easier to look at. But what we have over here, we want income, then expenses, and then we'll take a look at the cash flow again. So the total that we're expecting, right, is $1,950 almost. Again, these are just pulled from the opposite page, right? With the total cash flow and annual cash flow of $3,600. And then we want to know like the return on our money. Okay, so these are the same components from the last page, right? I have $9,000 left in the deal afterwards, $10,000 left in the deal, and I'm getting about $3,600 a year, $3,550 a year. So the annualized amount I'm getting is about 35.5% on my money. And that's going to grow over time based on these super, super conservative estimates, right? So when I do things like this, what if rents were just the average, right? 24, 26. I would get all my money back basically in 1 year. So my money is doubling every year. Let's go back to our conservative estimates. Or what if, well, we can't really change anything on this end here, but what if more than likely the rehab costs are closer to what I think they're going to be around, and I said 13,000, we'll just call it 15,000, right? Then I get more money back at that first portion when the loan gets refinanced, right? So if I think the rehab costs are 20 and then they're only end up being 5, then when I go to do the refinance, I get more money back at that point. So instead of getting $28,000 back, I get $32,000 back. And I take that $32,000, right? And I've only put in $32,899. So, right? Because if we go through and take a look at this again, right? You guys can see this. If this rehab cost comes down, my total cost paid in will be $32,000. I'm gonna get a refinanced loan, right? It's gonna be $184,000, and I have to pay back this, and I have to pay back that. So what we're gonna do is take this minus this minus this. So I'll only have $5,000 in this deal. which would be absolutely insane to purchase a property. Or what if I can cut this down, right? What if I can cut the holding time down? Then I get money back. Think about that. If I'm able to control the budget and do it in a quicker time period than I think, then I get $88 back for purchasing a property. What's your return on that? I get paid every single month $300 for I didn't pay anything for. I already got my money back in less than a year. All that money I put in, I already got it back, and I still own the fucking property. So there's a lot of like cool things that you can do. I honestly, I mean, I have I know somebody who does a few properties a month. I haven't talked to them or anything, but I might reach out to them and just for the planning aspect of things, because I think this could really be a big one. By the way, I also have another analysis video coming out on a note that I purchased, a mortgage note that I actually purchased, and that's going to be a very interesting video. So if you want to see that, let me know down below in the comments. If you guys have any thoughts on what I'm doing, what I missed, let me know down below in the comments. I appreciate the feedback. And don't forget to subscribe to see that next video on the analysis, or jump over to Instagram and say what's good. There's a link in the description. Peace.